This is The Wire for 2300 Zulu, January 27th, 2025. President says routine. Information cutoff is 2200. Bottom line up front. Diplomatic scandal erupts, is quickly resolved between the US and Colombia. Skirmish breaks out on southern US border near Fronton, Texas. Beginning with international events, in France, a 14-year-old was murdered by two as-yet unidentified assailants in Paris. The boy died after being stabbed for refusing to give up his phone to the attackers, who were later arrested. Local police have stated that both assailants had previously been arrested for violent crime. In Colombia, diplomatic tensions remain high following a brief scandal involving deportations over the weekend. Trouble began when Colombian authorities refused to allow two American deportation flights to land in their country. Immediately following this development, the United States imposed a 25% tariff on all Colombian trade with the United States and canceled all of the visas for all Colombian government officials in the United States. A few hours after President Trump posted these terms on his social media account, Colombia relented and will now accept all deportation flights as previously agreed. As a result, the United States has removed the threat of tariffs and has resumed the status quo. Analysts comment. While short-lived, this diplomatic spat has largely served as a very strong message in the diplomatic arena and proven that the United States government will not hesitate to impose tariffs. In the Middle East, tensions have flared again following the ceasefire in Gaza as territorial aspirations have become more publicly known. Over the weekend, President Trump made his policy position more clear by desiring Gaza to be completely abandoned by the Palestinians. Specifically, he stated that, quote, "You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we can just clean out that whole thing." End quote. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or the DRC, conflict has intensified once again following the rapid advance of M23 rebels in the eastern region of the war-torn nation. Over the weekend, the Rwandan-backed and ethnically Tutsi M23 rebels conducted a rapid advance into the city of Goma in eastern DRC. On the home front in Texas, one individual was shot by military police as they attempted to breach the perimeter of Joint Base San Antonio-Fort Sam Houston Saturday afternoon. Analysts comment. So far, very few details have been released regarding this incident. However, the individual was reportedly attempting to enter the installation via the Walters Gate. The assailant was treated at a local hospital. In Indiana, Matthew Huddle was shot and killed by state police during a traffic stop in Jasper yesterday evening. Analysts comment. Huddle was recently pardoned by President Trump as part of the J6 pardons. Right now, the circumstances of this incident are unclear. However, the shooting allegedly took place after Huddle resisted arrest. What originally prompted the traffic stop and the attempt to arrest him remains unknown. As such, in the absence of information, the larger context of many J6 prisoners being re-arrested on state charges must be considered, as many loose ends pertaining to the J6 incident remain unresolved. Around the country, deportations continue as before, with many ICE raids taking place in many major cities throughout the United States. Fortification efforts at the southern border continue as thousands of troops arrive and begin deterrence and security operations. This afternoon, Texas DPS officials reported a skirmish along the border in the Rio Grande Valley sector near the town of Fronton. A suspected cartel element of unknown size, attempting to aid illegals in their entry into the United States, opened fire with small arms on unidentified American forces on the American side of the river. No casualties were reported on either side as a result of the engagement, though the crossing of illegals was halted as the suspected cartel members broke contact and egressed from the area. Analyst comments for this wire. As one might expect, President Trump's short, offhand comment on Gaza is exceptionally important in the context of the history of the region and all of the wars fought over sand since World War II. Of course, close examination of President Trump's choice of vernacular rarely yields a clear result when it comes to foreign policy. However, many have taken this statement as further confirmation of what the United States' intentions are in the region, to forcibly immigrate Palestinians from Gaza en masse into another neighboring nation so that Israel can seize the land. Israel has been very open and clear regarding their desire for a defensive buffer zone that would require territorial expansion. As inflammatory as that idea may be for some, this plan is patently obvious at this point, despite all efforts to gaslight and deflect from this truth. Of course, American discourse on this issue is largely tainted by the blackmail and manipulation of our politicians and a gaslighting of the American people at large. In American society, the most important facet of any conversation pertaining to the Palestinian question is that of denunciation. The slightest criticism of Israel simply is not allowed throughout American society without immediately condemning Hamas within the same breath, to the point that sheer conversational exhaustion abounds. This social implication alone has compromised all discourse on the region for decades. Granted, participants of the pro-Palestine movement here in the U.S. aren't doing themselves any favors either, both with their actions and the reality of the larger ideology at play not exactly endearing to or being congruent with American culture. However, taking all of the inflammatory ideology out of the equation, on both sides, and solely focusing on the stability of the region, Trump wanting to quote-unquote clean out Gaza is certain to result in a true lasting peace becoming much harder to come about. Unfortunately, a peace can come about in two ways. The first being if the belligerents of a conflict decide to halt hostilities. The second being if the entirety of one side, to include every living human being in the area, is eliminated. Unfortunately, President Trump's statements do nothing to alleviate the growing concerns that American intentions support the latter situation. This concludes The Wire for 2300 Zulu, January 27th, 2025.